My name is Connor Hayes, and I'm about to tell you how my wife's family tried to steal $16.8 million from me and how their own prenup became the weapon that destroyed them. 11 months ago, I was sleeping in a Hampton Inn, wondering how 9 years of marriage could disappear the moment real money showed up. Today, I own Phoenix Construction, the fastest-growing contractor in Austin, Texas. The secret weapon? A prenuptial agreement that old oil money forced me to sign, thinking it would protect them forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, back when I thought marrying into the Whitmore family was the American dream. I'm 43 years old, and until 11 months ago, I thought I had life figured out. I'd spent 20 years climbing from a framer making $12 an hour to senior project manager at Austin Premier Construction, pulling in a steady $92,000 a year. Nothing fancy by Austin standards, but enough to keep my wife Isabella and me comfortable in our modest 3-bedroom house near Zilker Park. My specialty was luxury condos in the Dramaine area. Managing teams of 65 guys, coordinating with architects, keeping million-dollar projects on schedule. When you're building a 20-story tower, every detail matters. One mistake in the foundation and the whole thing comes down. I'd learned that lesson the hard way on a job in 2019 when a subcontractor poured concrete before the rebar inspection. Cost us 3 weeks and $150,000 to fix. That attention to detail, documenting everything, following protocols, never cutting corners, would serve me well in the legal battle ahead. Isabella and I had been married for 9 years. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and came from the kind of old Texas money that built downtown Austin back when oil was king. Her family, the Whitmores, owned half the commercial real estate between 6th Street and the Capitol. They never thought a blue-collar guy like me was good enough for their precious daughter. They made that crystal clear when they insisted I sign a prenuptial agreement before our wedding in December 2017. It's just to protect the family assets, Augustus Whitmore, call him Gus, had explained in his lawyer's office on Congress Avenue. Nothing personal, Connor. Just business. I signed it without much thought. Love makes you do stupid things, and I was head over heels for Isabella. The prenup seemed straightforward. What was theirs stayed theirs, what was mine stayed mine. And anything we acquired together during marriage would be considered community property under Texas law. Simple enough, right? Guys, before I tell you how a construction worker outsmarted Texas oil money, smash that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this plays out. The Whitmore family mansion in Westlake Hills was like something out of Dallas. 8,000 square feet of limestone and arrogance, overlooking Lake Austin. Every time we visited for Sunday dinner, I felt like I was applying for a job I'd never get. Gus collected vintage Rolex watches and memberships to clubs that had waiting lists longer than construction permits. His prized piece was a 1953 Submariner worth more than my annual salary. Cordelia, Isabella's mother, organized charity galas for causes she couldn't pronounce but could certainly tax deduct. And Sebastian, Isabella's older brother, had never worked a day in his life but somehow held the title of vice president at Whitmore Properties. For 9 years they tolerated me. Barely. I was the construction guy their daughter married during her rebellious phase. They figured I'd eventually get tired of their world, or she'd get tired of mine. Isabella worked part-time as a curator at Contemporary Austin, earning about $31,000 a year. More for passion than necessity. Her trust fund made sure she never wanted for anything. We talked about kids someday, maybe buying a bigger house. Normal married couple stuff. She had one quirk that drove me crazy. Every week, she'd spend $50 on lottery tickets at the H-E-B on South Lamar. Same numbers every time, family birthdays, anniversaries, the date we met. Someday, she'd always joke, these numbers are going to make us rich. That money came out of our joint account at Austin Credit Union. $50 a week for 9 years. I did the math once, over $23,000 in lottery tickets. I used to tease her about it. Babe, that's a down payment on a lake house, I'd say. Just wait, she'd respond. When we hit it big, you'll thank me. I should have paid more attention to that word, we. November 15th, 2024, a Thursday. I remember because I was reviewing blueprints for a new high-rise in East Austin, 24 stories, $45 million project. When Isabella called at 4:17 p.m. screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Connor, oh my God, Connor! We won, we actually won. I thought she meant we'd won some art contest at the museum. Maybe a $50 gift card to Whole Foods. Won what, babe? The lottery, the big one. $16.8 million. I drove home in my F-150 so fast I'm lucky APD didn't pull me over. Found Isabella in our kitchen, dancing around with a lottery ticket in her hand, tears streaming down her face. $16.8 million. After federal taxes, Texas doesn't tax lottery winnings, it came to about $11.2 million. I stared at that ticket, bought at 3:42 p.m. according to the timestamp, paid for with our Austin Credit Union debit card ending in 7439. The same account we'd used for every lottery ticket for 9 years. For about 30 minutes, I thought our dreams had come true. Isabella was already on the phone with her parents, shrieking with joy. "Mom, Dad, we did it! We actually did it! We're rich, Connor!" she shouted, throwing her arms around me. "We're actually rich!" That same evening, the entire Whitmore family showed up at our house. Gus, Cordelia, Sebastian, even Isabella's snobbish Aunt Margaret, who usually pretended I didn't exist. They brought champagne, Dom Perignon, $300 a bottle, flowers, the works. But something felt off from the moment they walked in. The way they looked at me had changed. It was subtle at first, sideways glances, conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Isabella seemed different too. Distant, like she was seeing me for the first time and didn't like what she saw. "We need to be smart about this," Gus kept saying, swirling his champagne. "This kind of money requires proper management, financial advisors, legal protection. Family money needs family oversight," Cordelia added, shooting me a look. Over the next 3 days, it got worse. Isabella started having long private phone calls with her family. She'd leave the room when I approached, speaking in hushed tones. When I asked about our plans for the money, maybe pay off the house, start that construction company I'd always dreamed of, she became evasive. "We need to think this through, Connor. My father knows people. We can't just go spending it like we won a church raffle." Our money had become we real quick. And we didn't seem to include me. November 18th, 2024. 3 days after winning, Isabella asked me to come home early from the job site. Said we needed to talk about our future. I walked into our living room and found the entire Whitmore family waiting. Gus in his $3,000 Brioni suit, Cordelia clutching her Hermes bag, Sebastian smirking by the window like he knew a secret I didn't. Isabella looked nervous. That should have been my first red flag. "Connor," Isabella began, her voice unnaturally formal. "We need to discuss our situation." Gus cleared his throat. "Son, this lottery win changes things. Isabella's windfall needs proper protection." "Our windfall," I corrected. "We're married. Community property, right?" The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on those expensive Persian rugs. "Actually, Connor," Gus continued, "that's not exactly how this works. You see, lottery winnings can be considered separate property in certain cases, especially when..." "When what?" Isabella finally spoke up. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Connor, I think we should separate for a while." I felt like I'd been hit by a falling beam. "What, the money? It's mine." I picked the numbers. I bought the ticket. She couldn't meet my eyes. "I want you to move out." "Tonight?" Gus leaned forward like a vulture. "The prenup you signed protects both parties, Connor. Isabella's lottery win is her separate property. You're not entitled to any of it." I sat there stunned. 9 years of marriage, and they were throwing me away like construction debris the moment real money entered the picture. "I see," I said quietly. "So this was all planned." "Nothing was planned," Isabella snapped, finally showing some emotion. "But now that we have this opportunity, I'm not going to let anyone take advantage of me." Take advantage. That's what she called our marriage. 9 years of building a life together. Sebastian actually snickered from his spot by the window. "Come on, Connor. You had to know this day would come." "Fine," I said, standing up. "I'll pack my things." Isabella looked relieved. Her family seemed pleased with how easily I was capitulating. They had no idea what they'd just done. I moved into a Hampton Inn and Suites near the airport that night, paying $125 per night with my Visa card. Room 247, a sterile box with beige walls and the smell of industrial carpet cleaner. But instead of wallowing in self-pity, I did something they probably didn't expect. I got to work. 20 years managing construction projects had taught me one thing: documentation beats emotion every time. When a subcontractor claims they weren't supposed to install fireproof drywall, you pull out the specs. When an architect says the foundation measurements are wrong, you show them the survey. Evidence wins arguments, period. I spent 3 sleepless nights in that hotel room, laptop open, researching Texas Family Code until my eyes burned. I started with the basics, Texas Family Code section 3.003, which establishes the presumption that property acquired during marriage is community property. Then I dug deeper. Precedent cases, court decisions, appellate rulings. I read about lottery winnings, separate versus community property, commingling of assets. I took notes like I was studying for the PE exam all over again. Then I built a spreadsheet. Every lottery ticket purchase Isabella had made since our marriage, all from our joint account at Austin Credit Union. I downloaded 9 years of bank statements. Every transaction, every date, every amount. November 15th, 2024, $50 lottery purchase, debit card ending 7439, 3:42 p.m. November 8th, 2024, $50 lottery purchase, same card, 2:15 p.m. November 1st, 2024, $50 lottery purchase, same card, 4:33 p.m. Going back and back and back, $50 every week, sometimes twice a week. All community funds. All documented. If they wanted to fight dirty, I'd show them what a construction project manager does when he's motivated. But I needed professional help, and that meant calling a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I needed someone who could go toe-to-toe with whatever expensive sharks the Whitmores would hire. I spent 2 days researching divorce attorneys in Austin. Read every review on Avvo, every article in the Austin Business Journal. Called guys at work who'd been through messy splits. "You need Luther Blackwood," said Tommy Martinez, a crane operator who'd gone through a brutal divorce in 2022. "Guy's a shark, but he's our kind of shark." Luther Blackwood. Former UT law professor, 25 years specializing in high-asset divorces. His consultation fee was $600, but his success rate spoke for itself. I maxed out my credit card to pay it. His office was on West 6th Street in one of those converted warehouse buildings that screamed expensive lawyer. Luther himself was about 54, gray at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. "Mr. Hayes," he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his mahogany desk. "Tell me about this prenuptial agreement." I handed him the copy I'd kept in our filing cabinet. 9 pages of legal language I'd barely understood when I signed it. Luther read through it carefully, his expression growing more interested with each page. "This is fascinating," he said finally. "Your in-law's attorney was quite thorough. Almost too thorough." "What do you mean?" Luther pointed to a specific clause on page 4, right here. Section 3.7 states that any prizes, winnings, or awards acquired during the course of marriage shall be considered community property, subject to equal distribution upon dissolution. I felt something cold settle in my chest. But they said lottery winnings are separate property. Under normal Texas law, lottery tickets purchased with community funds during marriage are indeed community property. But even if Isabella had used her separate money, this prenup specifically overrides that protection. He looked up at me. "Did you read this before you signed it?" Honestly, I skimmed it. I was in love, and they were pressuring me to sign before the wedding. Luther smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. "Mr. Hayes, your in-laws just handed you the blueprint to their own destruction. So I'm entitled to half? According to this document they made you sign, potentially yes. Texas Family Code Section 3.003 establishes community property presumption, and your prenup actually strengthens that presumption rather than weakening it." He leaned back in his chair. "But we'll need to be strategic. They're going to fight this hard, and they have resources. My retainer is $22,000. I borrowed against my 401k and used every credit card I had. Best investment I ever made. The Whitmores didn't mess around. Within 48 hours of Isabella filing for divorce on November 20th, they'd hired Sterling & Associates, the most expensive divorce firm in Austin. Bradley Sterling himself took the case, $1,100 per hour, with a reputation for protecting wealthy clients' assets like a junkyard dog. Sterling was everything you'd expect from a high-powered attorney. Armani suits, office on the 40th floor of the Frost Bank Tower, a track record of crushing working-class defendants who dared to challenge his wealthy clients. His first move was predictable, threatening letters demanding I vacate any claim to the lottery winnings. Thick manila envelopes arriving at my hotel every few days, filled with legal language designed to intimidate. "Mr. Hayes," one letter read, "your frivolous claims regarding Mrs. Hayes's separate property lottery winnings constitute harassment and bad faith litigation. We demand you cease these baseless assertions immediately or face sanctions." They underestimated me completely. They saw a working-class guy who'd roll over and accept whatever scraps they threw him. They were wrong. Meanwhile, Isabella was living it up and documenting every minute on social media. Instagram posts from her new Tesla Model X, $95,000, purchased November 28th. Designer shopping sprees at Nordstrom and Hermes. A weekend trip to Napa Valley, first-class flights and $500 a night hotels. She put down $850,000 on a luxury condo at the Independent downtown, 2,200 square feet with views of Lady Bird Lake. Posted the realtor photos on Facebook with the caption, "New chapter, new home." Blessed, #lottery, #new beginnings. Her Instagram was a parade of expensive restaurants, luxury shopping trips, and first-class travel. She was spending our money like it was going out of style, and social media was documenting everything. Perfect evidence for community property commingling. Before I tell you about the legal warfare that followed, hit that notification bell. This gets intense. The divorce proceedings began in earnest on December 2nd, 2024. Sterling came out swinging, filing motions to dismiss my claims and painting me as a gold digger trying to exploit a legal loophole. His strategy was simple: bury me in paperwork and bleed me dry with legal fees. Motion to dismiss for lack of standing. Motion to compel arbitration. Motion for summary judgment. Motion for sanctions. Each one required Luther to respond, and each response cost me money. They're following the standard playbook for high-asset divorces, Luther explained during one of our strategy sessions in late December. Make it so expensive for you to continue that you'll take whatever settlement they offer. But Luther was methodical. We subpoenaed bank records showing years of lottery ticket purchases from our joint account. We documented Isabella's spending spree, proving she'd mixed the lottery money with community assets. The discovery phase was brutal. Sterling fought every subpoena, claimed attorney-client privilege on financial documents that clearly weren't privileged, and filed motion after motion to delay and drain my resources. Your legal bills are already at $28,000, Luther warned me during a January meeting. If this goes to trial, we're looking at $45,000 minimum. Sterling charges $1,100 an hour, and he's billing every phone call, every email, every sneeze. I'd invested everything I had in this fight. My 401k was tapped out, my credit cards maxed. I was living on job site lunches and gas station coffee, but I'd rather go broke fighting than live the rest of my life knowing I gave up. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Connor, Luther said during a phone call on January 15, 2025, I found something. Sterling made a critical error. What kind of error? In his haste to file preliminary motions in December, he actually acknowledged in court documents that the lottery ticket was purchased during the marriage with community funds. He signed and filed this under penalty of perjury. I felt my heart racing. What does that mean? It means he just destroyed his own case. Sterling's so used to intimidating working-class defendants into settlements, he got sloppy with his paperwork. The filing was right there in black and white, signed by Bradley Sterling himself. The lottery ticket in question was purchased during the marriage with community funds from the parties' joint account. Luther was almost giddy. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've never seen an attorney hand me their client's case like this. By February, the Whitmores were getting nervous. The settlement offers started coming. February 8th, $800,000. Take it and walk away clean, Gus said during a phone call I'll never forget. That's more money than you'll see in a lifetime of construction work. I'll think about it, I replied, though I'd already made up my mind. February 22nd, $1.5 million. Be reasonable, Connor. That's generational wealth for a working man. March 5th, $2.8 million. Sterling himself called this time. Mr. Hayes, my client, is prepared to make a final offer, $2.8 million. Take it, or we'll bury you in legal fees and appeals that could drag on for years. See you in court, I said and hung up. By early March, they were getting desperate. They hired a private investigator, some ex-cop who charged $150 an hour to follow me around hoping to find dirt. He documented my trips to Home Depot, my lunch at Whataburger, my evening walks around the hotel parking lot. They found nothing. I'd lived a clean life. Next, they tried claiming I'd been emotionally abusive, hoping to reduce my settlement under Texas Family Code provisions for family violence. Isabella gave a deposition claiming I'd been controlling and manipulative, that I'd isolated her from her family. Problem was, they had no evidence. No police reports, no medical records, no witnesses. Luther demolished their claims with phone records, showing Isabella had made all the major financial decisions during our marriage. Bank statements proved I'd never controlled her access to money. Her own social media posts showed her living freely and happily throughout our marriage. Mr. Sterling, Luther said during one heated deposition, are you seriously asking this court to believe that a woman being controlled by her husband would post 847 Instagram photos over 9 years showing her at art galleries, wine tastings, and girls' trips to Costa Rica? 3 days before trial, Isabella showed up at my hotel room. She looked different, tired. The constant partying and legal stress were taking their toll. Connor, please, she begged, standing in my doorway at 9 p.m. We can work this out. I was scared, okay? The money, it overwhelmed me. My family got in my head. Scared of what, Isabella? Sharing our good fortune? I'll give you $4.2 million, she said desperately. More than half, Connor. We can both start fresh. No more lawyers, no more court dates. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 9 years. Really looked at her. The designer clothes, the new highlights, the desperation in her eyes. It was never about the money, Isabella. It was about respect, about honoring the commitment we made to each other. She left crying. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. March 22nd, 2025. Travis County Family Court, Courtroom 3. Judge Maria Gonzalez presiding. Judge Gonzalez was a 15-year veteran of the family court bench, known for her thorough preparation and no-nonsense approach to high-asset divorces. She'd seen every trick in the book and had little patience for legal gamesmanship. The courthouse was packed. Word had gotten out about the case. Construction worker versus oil money had become a local interest story. News crews from KXAN, Fox 7, and the Austin American-Statesman were stationed outside. Blue-collar David Battle's Texas Goliath was the morning headline. I wore my best suit, a navy blue from Men's Warehouse that I'd bought for our wedding 9 years earlier. Luther had suggested I wear something more expensive, but I wanted to be myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the same suit I'd worn when I promised to love Isabella for richer or poorer. Isabella sat with her family on one side of the courtroom, looking pale and nervous. The entire Whitmore clan was there. Gus in his Brioni suit, Cordelia clutching her Hermes bag, Sebastian checking his Rolex every 5 minutes. Sterling whispered urgently in Isabella's ear, probably preparing her for what was coming. Judge Gonzalez took her seat at exactly 9 a.m. We're here for the matter of Hayes versus Hayes, case number 2025-FAM-000847. Mr. Sterling, your opening statement. Sterling stood confidently, but I noticed his hands shaking slightly. He knew what was coming. Your Honor, this case is about a vindictive husband attempting to steal money he had no part in earning. Mrs. Hayes selected those lottery numbers based on meaningful family dates. She purchased that ticket with her own intuition and hope. She won that prize through her own luck and perseverance. He gestured toward me dismissively. Mr. Hayes is attempting to exploit a technicality in a prenuptial agreement to claim half of winnings that are rightfully Mrs. Hayes's separate property under Texas law. Luther remained seated, taking notes on his yellow legal pad. He looked completely relaxed, like a chess master watching his opponent walk into a trap. Sterling continued for 20 minutes, arguing that lottery winnings were separate property, that the prenup didn't apply to unforeseeable windfalls, and that I was essentially a gold digger exploiting a legal loophole. When he finished, Judge Gonzalez turned to Luther. Mr. Blackwood, your opening statement. Luther stood slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Your Honor, this case is remarkably simple. We have a prenuptial agreement signed by both parties in December 2017 that explicitly states any prizes or winnings acquired during marriage are community property. We have Texas Family Code Section 3.003 that supports this position. And we have documentation proving the lottery ticket was purchased with community funds during the marriage. He paused, looking directly at Sterling. The defendants are asking this court to ignore their own contract because they don't like the outcome. But as Your Honor knows, contracts mean what they say, not what we wish they said after the fact. The evidence phase was devastating for Isabella's side. Luther presented bank records showing years of lottery ticket purchases from our joint Austin Credit Union account. 9 years of $50 weekly purchases, all documented, all from community funds. He showed how Isabella had co-mingled the lottery winnings with community assets instead of keeping them separate. The Tesla purchase on November 28th. The Hermes shopping spree on December 3rd. The condo deposit on December 15th. Your Honor, Luther said, holding up Isabella's Instagram posts. Mrs. Hayes claims she always intended to keep these winnings separate. Yet within 2 weeks of winning, she was mixing lottery funds with community assets and documenting her spending spree on social media. He even had the original receipt from H-E-B on South Lamar, where she bought the winning ticket on November 15th, 2024. Paid for with our joint debit card ending in 7439 at 3:42 p.m. Sterling's cross-examination was weak. He tried to argue that Isabella had intended to keep the winnings separate, but intention doesn't matter when you've already mixed the money. Intention, Your Honor, is irrelevant under Texas law, Luther responded. Actions matter. And Mrs. Hayes' actions clearly demonstrate she treated these winnings as community property. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Luther called Sterling's legal strategy into question by reading directly from his own court filings. Mr. Sterling, I'm holding your preliminary motion dated December 3rd, 2024. On page 7, paragraph 3, you stated, and I quote, "The lottery ticket in question was purchased during the marriage with community funds from the parties' joint account." Do you remember writing that? Sterling's face went white. The courtroom was dead silent. That was a misstatement. A misstatement that you signed and filed with this court under penalty of perjury? Yes, but Judge Gonzalez leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, are you telling this court you filed false documents? No, Your Honor. I misspoke in the document. I meant to say the ticket was purchased with Mrs. Hayes's separate, Your Honor, Luther interrupted smoothly. Mr. Sterling's own filings support our position. He's acknowledged under oath that community funds were used to purchase the winning ticket. His client has commingled the winnings with community assets. And the prenup specifically designates such winnings as community property. The Whitmore family looked sick. Gus was sweating through his expensive shirt. Cordelia kept shaking her head in disbelief. Sebastian had stopped checking his Rolex. Isabella took the stand to testify on her own behalf. Sterling had clearly coached her, but she was rattled. Mrs. Hayes, Luther began his cross-examination, you've testified that you always intended to keep any lottery winnings as separate property. Is that correct? Yes. Then why did you deposit the entire $11.2 million into your personal checking account at Bank of America, which you've been using to pay community expenses since 2019? Isabella stammered. I needed somewhere to put it. You have a separate account at Frost Bank, correct? An account your husband has never accessed? Yes, but an account with over $73,000 in it as of November 15th, 2024. Correct? Yes. So you had somewhere to keep the money separate, but you chose not to. Instead, you mixed it with community funds and began spending it freely on luxury items. Correct? Isabella looked at Sterling desperately, but he couldn't help her. I guess so. Luther pulled out her Tesla purchase agreement from Tesla Austin. You bought this car on November 28th, 2024, 13 days after depositing the lottery winnings. Correct? Yes. For $95,000? Yes. Using lottery money? Yes. Did you consult with your husband about this major purchase? We were separated. Ma'am, you didn't file for divorce until December 2nd, 2024. You were still legally married when you bought this car. So I'll ask again, did you discuss this $95,000 purchase with your husband? Number. Luther continued methodically through each purchase. The Hermes bags, the Napa Valley trip, the condo deposit. Each time, Isabella had to admit she'd used lottery money without consulting me, despite being legally married. Judge Gonzalez recessed for lunch at 12:30 p.m. In the hallway, Gus Whitmore approached me one final time. Connor, this is madness. We'll appeal whatever decision she makes. This could drag on for years. Cost you everything you have left. That's your choice, Gus. But I've got time and a good lawyer. His face was red with anger. You ungrateful son of a bitch. We welcomed you into our family. No, I said quietly. You tolerated me until you thought you could throw me away. The afternoon session was brief. Judge Gonzalez had made her decision. I've reviewed all evidence and applicable law, she began at 2:15 p.m. The prenuptial agreement signed in December 2017 is clear and unambiguous. Section 3.7 explicitly states that any prizes or winnings acquired during marriage are community property. Texas Family Code Section 3.003 supports this interpretation. Furthermore, the defendant's actions in co-mingling the lottery winnings with community assets demonstrates her own recognition that these funds were not separate property. Isabella started crying. Her mother grabbed her hand. In Texas, we honor contracts. The defendants cannot now claim that their own prenuptial agreement doesn't mean what it plainly says simply because they dislike the result. Judge Gonzalez looked directly at me. Mr. Hayes, while the court cannot award attorney's fees in this case, I am awarding you 50% of the net lottery winnings totaling $5.6 million. Mrs. Hayes, you have 90 days to liquidate assets if necessary to meet this obligation. The gavel came down with a satisfying thud at 2:22 p.m. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. I ignored them all except one from KXAN. Mr. Hayes, how does it feel to win? I thought about that for a moment, standing in the Texas sunshine, thinking about the long road that had brought me here. Justice always feels good. 6 months later, in September 2025, I used part of my settlement to buy Austin Premier Construction from my retiring boss. Today, Phoenix Construction employs 41 people and specializes in affordable housing throughout Central Texas. We're building the kind of homes working families can actually afford. Starter homes, duplexes, small subdivisions in communities like Del Valle and Pflugerville. Good, honest construction for good, honest people. Isabella had to sell her Tesla, return the deposit on her downtown condo, and liquidate most of her designer purchases to pay me. The Hermes bags went back to the store. The Napa Valley memories remained expensive Instagram posts. Last I heard, she was working at her father's real estate office in Westlake, earning $38,000 a year and living in a one-bedroom apartment in South Austin. Her social media went quiet after the trial. The Whitmore family never spoke to me again, which was fine by me. They'd shown their true colors when they thought they could throw me away like construction debris. Gus sold 2 of his vintage Rolexes to help pay my settlement. Poetic justice. Sterling and Associates billed them $340,000 in legal fees. Luther's final bill to me was $47,000. Money well spent. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just letting people face the consequences of their own greed and stupidity. They created the weapon that destroyed them. I just had the dignity to use it. My 1985 F-150 still runs great, by the way. Some things are worth keeping. If you enjoyed this story of blue-collar justice triumphing over old money arrogance, smash that like button and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Remember, sometimes the contracts meant to keep you down become the very tools that lift you up. The Whitmores learned that lesson the hard way. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.